Hey guys, tonight we are stepping into a place few remember, but many once called home. It's a quiet summer evening in Texas. The wind slips gently through a screen door that squeaks just once before settling. The floorboards beneath your feet are warm from the sun, the clay beneath the house still holding on to heat like an old memory. You're sitting in a small wooden chair, maybe older than you, in a room where nothing matches, but everything belongs. A ceiling fan turns lazily overhead, slicing the heat into slow-motion waves. Outside, the cicadas hum like a low lullaby. Inside, your hands rest quietly on your lap. You don't speak. Not yet, because tonight is not just any night. Tonight is about listening, about remembering something bigger than yourself. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I'm always curious how far these little stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand barefoot on the front porch of a house made from red clay and rusted nails. You don't own it, not legally, but you've swept its floors every day since you were tall enough to hold a broom, and you've cried into the walls when nobody was looking. The year is 1865, but not the 1865 you know, not the history book version. Here, on this quiet strip of Texas soil, time moves differently, slower, heavier. You don't know what the war means. Not really. You've heard whispers, names like Lincoln and Lee passed around like curses or prayers, depending on who's saying them. But for you, the war has been mostly absence. Absence of people, absence of meals, absence of songs at night. You lean against a wooden beam, watching the dust dance in the late sunlight. Your shirt sticks to your back, and the dry air scratches your throat. But still, you wait. You don't know what for, only that something is shifting. Something invisible but undeniable. Your mother is inside. You hear her humming barely, the same song she's hummed for years, a tune that doesn't seem to belong to any language, just rhythm and longing. She's been quiet lately, not sad, not angry, just quiet in that way people get when they're holding something too big inside. She doesn't talk about freedom. She doesn't believe in teasing your heart like that, but her eyes say things her mouth refuses to. When she looks at you, sometimes you see a flicker of something wild, like lightning caught in a jar. The day fades. The shadows stretch like lazy cats across the porch. You can smell molasses bread baking somewhere nearby, someone else's kitchen, someone else's story. Then comes the sound. Hoofbeats, not rushed, but certain, measured. You step off the porch, squinting down the road. Dust kicks up in soft clouds behind a group of men in Union blue. They're not here to arrest anyone, or burn anything, or take. That's the strange part. They just stop, right there, at the edge of the yard. One dismounts. He's young, with eyes too old for his face. He opens a folded piece of paper. It shakes slightly in the breeze, but his voice doesn't. He reads, "All slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. The freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages." That's it. One breath, one moment, one paper, and nothing changes. At least not right away. Your mother doesn't run outside. She doesn't shout or collapse. She keeps humming, but the note changes, sharper now, louder almost. You turn toward the door, expecting her to appear. She doesn't. You look back to the soldier. He's already mounting up again. One of the others nods at you, not kindly, not cruelly, just human. They ride off. The silence they leave behind is strange. It's not empty, it's swollen, pregnant with something you can't name. The air smells different. The wind feels cooler. You step back onto the porch, sit where you were. And for the first time in your life, nobody tells you not to. No voice snaps from behind. No shadow blocks the sun. Later that night, you ask your mother if it's real, if you're free. She closes her eyes. Her lips part like she's about to say something, but instead, she reaches for your hand. Her fingers are rough, calloused from years of work no one thanked her for. She squeezes once. That's it. And you feel something rise in your chest that isn't quite joy. It's older than joy, deeper, like remembering a dream you didn't know you had. Somewhere in the distance, a fire crackles. You hear voices, other homes, other porches, other mothers explaining what no one quite understands. And in that moment, sitting there with her hand wrapped around yours, you realize something has ended and something else, something new has just begun. Even if nobody knows how to name it yet, the next morning, everything looks the same. The yard is still a patchwork of red dust and brittle grass. The chickens peck at nothing, and the well still creaks when you pull up the bucket. The sun rises slow and uncaring, like it always has, but you feel it. In your skin, in your bones. Something shifted. Your mother doesn't say the word freedom, not today either. Instead, she makes cornbread, a little sweeter than usual. She combs your hair without tugging. She hums while she works. But now the tune has changed keys, subtly. Not quite a celebration, not quite a hymn. Something in between. You leave the house barefoot, your feet already tough from years of walking this land. You walk past the cotton rows, dry and half-picked. The old barn still leans, like it might fall over if the wind gets pushy. But you don't go there today. You follow a different path, one made more by memory than use. There's a big tree near the back of the property, the kind that's been there longer than anyone you know. Its roots crack the earth like a quiet rebellion. You sit beneath it, as you've done since you were little. That's where she finds you, Miss Annie, the preacher's wife. She walks like she's carrying something heavy, even when her hands are empty. Her eyes squint in the light, but they soften when they land on you. "Did you hear?" she says. You nod. They say it's real. The soldiers, the letter. She doesn't smile, not yet. Instead, she sits down beside you like the ground gave her no choice. She takes off her hat and folds her hands in her lap. "You know," she says quietly, "your mama once told me you were born with your eyes open." You don't remember that, but it sounds true. She said you didn't cry right away, just looked at her like you'd already seen too much. The breeze stirs the tall grass. A cicada buzzes, lazy and slow. She thought maybe you'd grow up free, Annie whispers. I told her not to get her hopes up. You both sit there for a while, saying nothing, just listening to the wind press itself against the world. Then she turns to you. You know what this means, don't you? You shake your head. It means you'll get to choose now. Maybe not everything, but something. A name, maybe. A place, a person to be. You blink. You've never been asked to choose anything before. Miss Annie stands, brushes the dust off her skirt. I heard some folks talking about a schoolhouse in the next county for our kind. Just a shack with letters on the wall. But it's something. She doesn't tell you to go. She just tells you it's there. Later that day, you see your neighbor, Mr. Ben, big hands, voice like thunder, kneeling in his garden, not working, just sitting. You've never seen him still before, like his body doesn't know how to move without orders. You wonder how many people feel this strange now, like newborns in the old skin. That evening, as the sun stretches long across the fields, your mother brings out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. She hands it to you without a word. Inside, a pair of shoes too big, a folded shirt, a crust of bread, and a tiny wooden carving of a bird. I carved that, she says, finally, long time ago, for when you left. You stare at her, confused. She doesn't look at you. You gonna leave, she says. Not tomorrow, but someday. And you won't have to sneak away in the night. You clutch the bundle tight. The bird fits perfectly in your palm. That night, you lay awake on your straw-stuffed mattress, the air thick with memory and bread and maybe something like courage. You stare at the ceiling and wonder what your name would be if you could pick it. You mouth different sounds. None feel quite right. But you'll find one. You're sure of it. Outside, fireflies blink like tiny lanterns. Inside, your mother snores softly in the next room. And you let yourself fall asleep, knowing for the first time that you'll get to wake up on your own terms. Almost. A few days pass and things begin to change. Not with a bang, but like smoke slipping under a door. A few families pack up and leave. They don't say where they're going, just that they got somewhere else to be now. Some stay, like your mother, like you for now. You hear whispers at the well. Some say the soldiers lied. Some say the freedom isn't real, that the paper was just paper, and the men were just men. Others say it's the beginning of everything. One boy, maybe a year older than you, starts calling himself by a new name. Isaiah, he says, loud and proud. It's not the name his old master gave him. It's the name he found in a Bible someone dropped during the war. It feels strange at first, calling him that. But then it feels good, like fitting a new shirt over the skin that finally stopped itching. Even your mother starts to hum less and speak more. She tells you things she's never said. About her mother, about chains, about songs sung in code. You didn't know people hid messages in melodies. You wonder what secrets you've missed all this time. One evening, you sit beside her after supper. She takes your hand and says, "You were never property, not to me, not even when they said so." You nod. You don't have the words yet, but you will, eventually. You leave before sunrise. The bundle your mother gave you feels heavier than it did when she first handed it over, even though nothing has changed inside. Maybe it's not the weight of the cloth or the bread or even the wooden bird. Maybe it's the weight of choice. Your feet follow a dirt road that isn't on any map. It's a path stitched together by stories. Someone's cousin went that way and found work. Someone's aunt heard there was a schoolhouse 3 towns over. You don't know if any of it is true, but it's better than staying still. The air is cool and smells of pine needles and old wood smoke. Every few steps, a twig cracks underfoot. You feel like you're walking through a memory, one that's not entirely yours. You pass trees with carved initials, names you don't recognize. Maybe they were carved by hands like yours. Maybe they weren't. Some are deep, angry cuts. Some are careful, loving. Someone was here before you. Many someones. Your stomach growls by the time the sun is fully up. You take a bite of the bread. It's gone stale already, but it still tastes like home. A little salt, a little smoke, a whole lot of goodbye. By noon, you find a fence with no gate and climb over it like a question mark. Beyond it, there's a road, a real one, flat and dusty, with wagon wheel tracks and horse droppings dried into the earth. You follow it west because you think the school is west. You're not sure. You didn't ask. You didn't want to look unsure. You pass a man on a cart who doesn't look at you. You pass a woman with a bundle on her back and a child clinging to her skirt. She smiles at you like she knows. You nod. That's enough. That night, you sleep under a tree. It's not a kind tree. Its roots jab at your ribs, and the wind cuts like judgment. You curl into yourself and whisper your own name just to see how it feels. You still haven't chosen one. The school is smaller than you imagined. It leans slightly, like it's not sure if it wants to stand or sit. A thin column of smoke curls out from the chimney. You knock on the door, but no one answers. So, you push it open. Inside, there are 3 benches, 1 blackboard, and a bucket of water with 2 tin cups beside it. On the far wall, a man writes letters in chalk. He doesn't turn around. ABC, he says. Start with what they can see. You clear your throat. He turns. He's old, not ancient, just worn down the way people get when they've had to explain themselves too many times. He looks you up and down, not suspicious, just careful. You here to learn? He asks. You nod. Got a name? You hesitate. Then you say the one that's been forming in your mind like a slow sunrise. Elijah. He nods. All right, Elijah, take a seat. And just like that, you're in. No papers, no fees, no test. Just your word. You sit on the middle bench. The wood creaks beneath you like it's not used to kindness. He keeps talking, but you can't follow everything he says. Something about vowels, about history, about letters and laws. Your mind drifts. You look around at the other students. One girl has her braids tied with red ribbon. One boy taps his foot like it's keeping time with a song only he can hear. They all look like you, and none of them do. At break, the teacher offers you water. You drink too fast and cough, embarrassed. He chuckles. You're not the first, he says. Won't be the last. You sit together on the step. He tells you about the war, about reading orders by candlelight, and teaching soldiers to write their names before they died. He says Juneteenth came late, but not too late. Some folks still don't believe it, he says. They think it's a trick, a delay, a half-truth wrapped in hope. You nod. I was there, you say quietly. I saw them read the paper. The teacher looks at you like you're older than you are. Well then, he says, maybe you'll teach the next one that walks in here. You smile, small, but real. That night, in a borrowed blanket on a borrowed floor, You dream of your mother's hands, of the wooden bird, of the porch creaking under firefly light. You also dream of that soldier, the one who read the paper. You see him again, standing still, voice strong, but this time he looks straight at you, and in the dream he says, "You've got something to do now. Don't waste it." You wake before dawn. The blanket slips off your shoulders like old skin. The floor creaks as you stand. The others are still asleep, curled into shapes of quiet hope. You walk to the doorway, look up at the sky. The stars are fading, the moon thin as a fingernail. You whisper your name into the darkness. Elijah. It sounds like a promise, like it belongs to you. And finally, it does. The days start to blur. Not because they're boring, but because they feel full, thick, like honey, slowly pouring over warm bread. Every morning, you wake before the rooster crows. You sweep the front step of the schoolhouse, even though nobody told you to. You drink from the same tin cup, sit on the same bench, and watch the teacher's hand paint words across the chalkboard like spells. The alphabet becomes a kind of magic. You copy every letter 3 times in your notebook, even the ones you don't understand yet. The loops of G, the slant of K, the mystery of Q. Each one is a doorway to something bigger than you. And then one day, it happens. The teacher writes the word freedom on the board. You stare at it, hard. It doesn't look like what it means. It's too quiet, too soft. It should be louder, sharper, maybe with a drum beat inside, maybe made of wood and smoke. Say it, he tells the class. You all murmur it together. Freedom. He nods. Then he points at you. What does it feel like? You blink. Everyone's watching now. You open your mouth. You're not sure what's going to come out. It feels like holding something warm you didn't know you needed. The teacher doesn't correct you. He just nods again. Later that week, you help carry firewood in from the back of the school. It's a small thing, but your arms ache anyway. You're still getting used to working for something instead of someone. As you're stacking away on logs, one falls and splits in 2. Inside, the grain of the wood swirls in a pattern you've never seen before, like waves, or fingerprints, or paths in dirt. You run your fingers over it. The teacher walks by, sees you staring. Ever split a log and find a secret? He asks. You nod slowly. Freedom's like that, he says. Not always where you expect, but when it shows up, it's beautiful. You think about that log all night. You keep the split half under your bed, like a charm. The other students start opening up to you. Some tell jokes, some cry. Some ask where you're from and why you walked all that way. You don't say much, but when they ask your name, you say it clear now, Elijah, and they believe you. One afternoon, a new girl arrives. She's thin, with sharp eyes and a crooked smile. She takes the bench behind you and doesn't say a word for 3 days. On the 4th day, she taps your shoulder and whispers, "Is it true? Are we really free?" You pause, then you nod. "But we don't know how to use it yet." She smiles. "Me neither. Her name is Maybelle. You don't know it yet, but she's going to be in your story for a long time. For now, she's just a girl with dusty shoes and too many questions. And you like that? One day, a man rides up to the schoolhouse on a mule that looks older than sin. He carries a satchel of papers and a clipboard that says census on it. You don't know what that means. He says he's writing down names, real ones. You hesitate when he gets to you. He doesn't rush you. He just waits. Finally, you say, Elijah, just Elijah. He writes it down, then asks, any other names? You think of your mother, the porch, the carving, the silence after the reading. Elijah Clay, you say, like the earth. He scribbles. Age? 13, probably. Occupation? You look at the teacher. Student, he says for you. The man tips his hat and moves on. It's the first time your name has ever been written down by someone who didn't own you. You don't tell anyone, but you fold your copy of the census slip into your shirt pocket. You'll carry it for years. That evening, as the sun sinks low, you and the others sit around a fire behind the schoolhouse. Maybelle hums a tune. The teacher smokes a pipe. The logs crack like lazy laughter. Someone asks, when did Juneteenth become real for you? One boy says, when we lit the first fire and nobody came to put it out. Another says, when I said my name and someone listened. You think for a moment. For me, you say softly, it was when I realized I didn't need anyone's permission to sit in the sun. That gets a few nods, even a small laugh. The fire burns low. You stare into it, watching the embers pulse like tiny beating hearts. You feel your own too. It's steady. It's yours. Weeks pass. The heat doesn't let up. It just gets cleverer, hiding itself in the walls, inside your shoes, under your fingernails. The schoolhouse starts to smell like sweat and ink and hope. You kind of like it. The letters on the blackboard turn into words, and the words turn into questions. Some are simple. What is a state? Who is the president? Others feel heavier, like stones in your belly. What makes a man free? Why now? Your teacher doesn't answer all of them. Sometimes he just lets the silence sit like a guest no one invited. One day he says, the right answer isn't always the loudest one. You scribble that down in your notebook like it's gold. One morning, the chalk breaks mid-sentence. The teacher sighs, drops the stub into his pocket. He looks out the window for a long time before speaking. Field trip, he says. No one knows what that means, but no one asks. He leads you out of the schoolhouse and down a narrow path lined with cedar trees. The sun pokes through the branches like curious fingers. The air smells sweeter here, less like history and more like possibility. Eventually, you reach a clearing where tall grass moves like water in slow motion. In the middle stands a crumbling stone wall, half-eaten by moss and time. This used to be a holding pen, he says quietly, before auction. Nobody speaks. He steps closer, kneels, runs his hand along the rough stone. Some say if you press your ear to it, you can still hear them. You don't try. You don't want to hear ghosts tonight, but you sit on the grass, the blades brushing your ankles like whispers, and you listen to the wind instead. It tells you enough. Later, walking back, Maybelle matches your steps. That wall, she says, it looked tired. You nod. It looks like it forgot what it was for. She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Good, let it forget. You think about that wall all day. That night, you sketch it in your notebook. But you draw wildflowers growing between the stones. You label each one even though you don't know their real names. You call one freedom flower. Another you name Ghostlight. There's a boy in class, Sammy, who talks too much and spells too little. But he can draw maps, like he was born with ink in his fingers. One day he shows you a map he made of the town, but there's something missing. "Where's the wall?" you ask. He shrugs. "Didn't want to put it in." You look at the empty space where it should be. You respect that. Sometimes forgetting is its own kind of freedom. The next time the teacher hands out writing assignments, he gives you one that stops your breath. Write about the day your life began. You stare at the paper for a long time. Not your birthday. That's just a date. Not the day the soldiers came. That's just a letter. You think, really think, and then you write, "The day I chose my own name." You don't write much more, just a few lines. But when you hand it in, the teacher reads it, folds it, and says, "That's it. That's the whole sermon." At the end of the week, you and Maybelle sit under the tree behind the schoolhouse. She's chewing a blade of grass. You're trying to memorize the spelling of Constitution. "You think we'll always be free?" she asks. You don't answer right away. Some historians argue Juneteenth didn't mark full freedom, you finally say, repeating something the teacher once said, "Just the end of one kind of captivity." She chews slower. "What's the other kind?" You think again. "The kind you don't notice." You both go quiet. Then she says, "If I ever forget, you'll remind me?" You smile. "Only if you do the same." She spits the grass out. Deal. That night, you dream of the stone wall again. But this time, it crumbles completely, and from its ruins grows a tree, huge and warm and lit from within, like it swallowed the sun and decided to share. You wake with your hand pressed to your chest. You don't know why, but it feels important. The rains come like a sigh, slow at first, then all at once. It soaks the red clay until it's soft enough to shape. The schoolhouse roof leaks in 3 places, and the teacher has to yell over thunder to finish the day's lesson. But nobody minds. Rain makes things grow. You and Maybelle are tasked with catching drips in buckets. You name each one. Bucket of eternal damp, splashy number 2. Definitely not leaking. She laughs at your names, her laugh bright and sharp as lightning. For a moment, the storm doesn't feel like something to hide from. It feels like something alive, something old. Later, as the rain quiets, the teacher gathers everyone near the fireplace. "I want you to hear something," he says, and pulls a small book from a tin box. It's leather-bound, edges curled from use. The words inside are printed, not written. Real pages, real ink. It looks official. He opens to a marked page and reads aloud. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." You've heard the phrase before, tossed around in someone else's mouth, someone else's war. But tonight, it lands differently. Some of us weren't meant to hear this back when it was written, the teacher says softly. But now, we read it anyway. He passes the book around. When it reaches you, the paper feels like something sacred, heavy but soft. You touch the words, not to understand them, but to prove they're real. Maybelle leans in and whispers, "You think they meant it when they wrote that?" You glance at her. "I think they didn't, but maybe we do now." Days turn into weeks. The garden behind the school sprouts in spite of everything. Beans, squash, stubborn collard greens. You all take turns weeding, watering, whispering encouragement to the plants like they're shy children. Someone carves a wooden sign, Freedom Patch. It's crooked. It's perfect. One hot afternoon, a stranger appears. He's dressed in a suit that doesn't quite fit, holding a clipboard and a notebook. He says he's from up north and is here to write a book. About what? Maybelle asks. About y'all, he says. The new citizens, the freedmen, your stories. You don't like the way he says it, like he's already decided what you'll say. He talks to everyone, scribbling in his little notebook. When he gets to you, he smiles and says, "Tell me about Juneteenth." You pause. Then you say, "It's not a day, it's a door." He frowns. "I don't follow." You shrug. "That's okay." He writes something anyway. When he walks off, Maybelle mutters, "He didn't come to listen, he came to prove something." You nod. But it's not our job to help him do that. That night, a debate breaks out over dinner. Someone says the soldiers should have come sooner. Someone else says freedom is a gift, no matter how late. You speak up, quiet but clear. It wasn't a gift. It was a truth finally spoken loud enough for someone to hear. The room falls silent. Then the teacher grins. "Elijah, you've got preacher bones." You shake your head. "No, sir, just a good memory." Later, Maybelle finds you carving something into the wooden beam behind the schoolhouse. Not your name, not a date, just a line. Not all chains make noise. She runs her fingers over the letters. "You think we'll still be talking about this in 50 years?" she asks. You nod. "If we're lucky." She's quiet a moment. Then she adds underneath your line, "But they all leave marks." Rain comes again. The sky doesn't roar this time. It weeps. You stand in it, eyes closed, face tilted up, letting the drops trace rivers down your cheeks. You imagine they're washing something off. Dust, memory, maybe fear. The teacher says the land remembers everything. That's why you plant good things. That's why you speak kindly near trees. That's why stories matter. That night, as the schoolhouse dims and the fire crackles low, you read from your notebook. It's not a speech. It's not homework. It's just thoughts about names, about freedom, about silence, about how you once thought being free meant running, and now you think it might just mean staying and choosing how. The others listen. Maybelle leans her head on your shoulder. Someone snores softly from the corner. The storm outside is steady, not angry. You fall asleep with the notebook open beside you, a half-written sentence curling across the page like a whisper that's still trying to finish itself. The sun returns with no apology. It slips back into the sky like it never left, drying the mud until it cracks underfoot and turns the air into a slow-cooked silence. The garden groans, but survives. So do you. Today is Juneteenth again, the second one since you learned the word. This time, it feels different. Not just a page read aloud, or a story whispered on a porch. It's a gathering. A full-bodied, dust-kicking, ribbon-flying celebration. There's music, real music. Fiddles and banjos and hands clapping against thighs. Maybelle dances with her eyes closed, like the ground is singing up through her feet. You try to keep up, you fail, you don't care. There's food, too much of it. Collards, cornbread, sweet potato pie, so rich it feels like sin. Someone's uncle made something called Liberty Punch. You don't ask what's in it. You drink 2 cups. You're older now. Not by years, maybe, but by memory. A girl no older than 5 tugs your sleeve and asks, "Is this the freedom?" You kneel, smile, and say, "Part of it." She nods like that's enough. Midday, the teacher gathers everyone around the big oak near the garden. Someone's hung a banner, made from stitched-together flour sacks. Juneteenth, we still here. He stands on a crate and clears his throat. This day didn't come easy, he begins. It came late and messy and quiet, but it came. You've heard him speak before. But today, he's slower, softer, not performing, just remembering. Some folks say Juneteenth was the end of slavery. That ain't exactly right. It was the end of the lie that it wasn't over. There's a difference. The crowd nods, murmurs. He goes on. A few of you told me something that stuck with me. Said freedom isn't a thing you're given. It's a thing you build. He looks straight at you. Elijah knows what I mean. You freeze. People turn. You nod once. It's all you can manage. He finishes. So today, we celebrate not just what was taken away, but what we've made in its place. Someone claps. Then everyone claps. But it's not loud. It's not for show. It's the sound of people agreeing without speaking. Later, you sneak away from the noise. You walk back to the old holding pen, the stone wall now covered in wildflowers you helped plant last fall. You run your hand across the moss. It feels softer now. You press your ear to the stone just once. You don't hear chains. You hear wind, leaves, a bird somewhere far off. That's enough. Maybelle finds you there, chewing a slice of pie she's already halfway through. She offers you the crust. You take it. Ready to go? She asks. You frown. Go where? She shrugs. Forward? Wherever that is. You think for a second. Then you say, "Yeah, I think I am." You both sit a while longer, letting the day stretch its arms. You talk about small things, how the punch was too sweet, how the teacher has a crush on Miss Annie, how someone should write all this down before it fades. And then she says something that sticks to your ribs. You ever think we're just shadows of the ones who never got the chance? You don't answer right away. Then quietly, sometimes. But I think we're the light too. She nods. Yeah, I like that. As dusk slides in like a soft curtain, people start lighting candles. Not many, just enough to glow. One by one, little flames flicker along the fence line, on porches, in windows, like stars coming down to visit. You take a candle, kneel by the edge of the garden, and press it into the dirt for your mother, for the boy who never chose his name, for the ones who walked before you. Maybelle lights hers beside yours, for the ones who still don't know they're free, she whispers. Then someone starts singing. You don't know the song, not all of it, but you hum along. It's slow, mournful, but not sad. It holds sorrow and joy in the same note, like Juneteenth itself. Later, when the fire dies low and the stars come out for real, you sit with your back against the tree. You think of the census man, of the chalkboard, of the wooden bird, of that first sentence you wrote, the day I chose my own name. You open your notebook. On the last page, you write something new. Freedom isn't a finish line. It's a lamp we pass from hand to hand. You close the book. You breathe in the warm night. And for the first time, you feel it fully. You're home, not the place, not the building, but the knowing you're home. The morning after Juneteenth is always quieter. Not because people are tired, though they are, but because silence feels sacred today, like something earned. You walk through town before the sun's all the way up. There's a kind of hush, like everyone's holding their breath for one extra beat. The banners are still up, drooping a little. The candles are burned out, leaving tiny puddles of wax on porch rails and fence posts. You pass Miss Annie's house. She's already sweeping her steps, as if trying to push the celebration's joy deeper into the wood grain. She nods at you. No words, just a knowing look. The kind only people who've waited a lifetime can give. Back at the schoolhouse, the benches are still sticky with spilled punch and laughter. The teacher doesn't lecture today. Instead, he brings out a crate filled with old newspapers, crumpled letters, faded flyers. He lays them across the table like playing cards. This, he says, is what freedom looks like when it's written down. You pick up a page. It's a flyer from an old abolitionist rally. Names you've never heard. Promises shouted into streets that no longer exist. Maybelle holds a yellowed letter with shaky handwriting. At the bottom, a name scratched out, rewritten, then scratched again. You think they knew? She asks. Knew what? That we'd be reading this someday. You don't answer, because you're not sure. The teacher hands each of you a blank page. Write something, he says. Not for me, not for school, for the next person who sits where you sit. You stare at the page for a long time. Then, in crooked letters, you write, I sat here. I didn't know what I was doing, but I kept showing up. That matters. Maybelle draws a flower under your words. You think it might be a freedom flower. Later, you and a few others walk past the edge of town, to the old cemetery. Not the one with the white stones and fences. The other one. The one where names were once a luxury. You bring a broom, a cloth, a small tin of oil. You don't know whose grave you're cleaning, but it feels right. You kneel, scrub moss from a stone with only the initials LB. You wonder who they were. You say their name aloud anyway, even if it's wrong. Maybelle kneels beside a stone that's just a rock, no markings. She lights a match and places a single petal at its base. Some folks died waiting, she says. You nod, and we live remembering. That night, you dream again. You're walking through a library with no ceiling. Stars shine where the roof should be. The shelves are endless. Books with no titles, just symbols. You reach out, open one. Inside, it's not printed. It's handwritten. Page after page of names. Some you recognize, some you don't. One page is blank. You pick up a pen. You write Elijah Clay. Underneath you write, free and still learning. You wake with your heart beating steady and sure. The next day, news arrives from a nearby town. A family was forced off land they thought they'd bought. No deed, no proof. Just promises made with smiles and handshakes. They come to your town with nothing but a wagon, a quilt, and each other. You help unload their things, even though no one asks you to. One of the children watches you, eyes dark, curious. You smile and say, "You're safe here." The child doesn't answer, but the mother nods. "Thank you," she whispers. "We're tired of running." You think of all the people who ran and never got to stop. You say, then maybe it's time to start building. That evening, the town gathers for a meeting. The teacher speaks first, then Miss Annie, then someone you've never seen before, a young man who's come down from up north. He speaks of laws, of votes, of land deeds and labor unions. His words are sharp, polished, like river stones. But when he's done, no one claps. Instead, you stand. You don't plan to, you just do. You say, freedom doesn't live on paper, not by itself. You gesture to the people around you. It lives here in how we carry each other, in how we remember, in what we pass on. The room is quiet. Then, one by one, they nod. They murmur. Someone claps. Then another. The young man smiles. Not offended, just surprised. You've reminded him of something. That night, as fireflies blink outside your window, you write a new entry in your notebook. This time, you don't write about yourself. You write about them. The new family. The unnamed graves. The girl who danced barefoot. The teacher who gave you chalk and a second chance. The mother who carved a bird out of wood. You write it all down. Because someday, someone will need to remember. And when they do, you'll be waiting on the page. It starts with a rumor. A whisper passed between benches at the schoolhouse, picked up by the wind, tossed between fence posts. Someone says there's a man coming. A preacher, but not like the teacher. This one's loud, fancy, full of fire and scripture from the city. He's going to preach freedom like it's a sermon, someone says. You're skeptical. You've heard sermons before. Some are made to uplift. Others are made to bind. Still, when the day comes, everyone shows up. The sun is high and unkind. The gathering is in the field near the cedar grove. Someone's tied a sheet between two poles to serve as a shade. Someone else brings cornmeal muffins. The air smells like sweat and wood smoke and curiosity. The preacher steps forward. Clean suit, slick shoes, voice like thunder under a tent. His Bible slaps when he opens it. He speaks of Exodus, of Pharaoh, of Moses standing before the sea. "Let my people go," he roars, and the crowd leans in. You glance at Maybelle. She's watching him with narrowed eyes, one brow raised like a question she's not ready to ask. The preacher says Juneteenth is a victory day, that God broke every chain and the devil dropped the keys. People cheer. Some cry. You stay quiet because something in you bristles, not at the message, but the show. When he finishes, the crowd surges to shake his hand, to thank him, to be seen. You and Maybelle hang back. He speaks like freedom is a gift wrapped in verses, she says. You nod. Freedom is work. You don't unwrap it, you carry it. That night, the teacher invites a few of you to sit by the schoolhouse fire. He passes around a pot of beans and cornbread still warm in a cloth. No sermon, no speech. Just quiet eating, thoughtful chewing. Then he says, that preacher meant well. You nod, but he didn't know us. Exactly. He pokes the fire. You know what I think? He says. Freedom's a muscle. You got to stretch it, bruise it, use it wrong before it gets strong. You don't write that down, but you remember it. Days later, a boy in class, Jesse, asks a question that lands hard. Were we really free if no one told us? The teacher leans against the blackboard. Some historians argue that Juneteenth wasn't emancipation, just information delayed. You chew on that for a while. You imagine a locked door. Imagine having the key the whole time, but never knowing you could use it. Maybelle says, then we were free, but trapped in the not knowing. And that somehow feels even heavier than chains. That afternoon, you walk to the wall again. You haven't been in weeks. The flowers you planted are taller now, spilling between the cracks like they own the place. You press your hand to the stones. Warm, not haunted, just old. Like a song no one sings anymore. You sit down and read aloud from your notebook, not for ghosts, for yourself. You read the part about choosing your name, the part about the wall forgetting, the part about the firelight and the census slip. When you finish, you close the notebook and say, "You hear that?" And in the silence that follows, you almost believe the wall nods. Back in town, things begin to shift. The new family has settled. The child who wouldn't speak now runs barefoot through the rows of squash and shouts answers in class. Someone else builds a new porch for Miss Annie. Someone else sets up a little lending library with 3 books and a cracked shelf. And then, one evening, something wild happens. The teacher hands you the chalk. Your turn, he says. You freeze. To do what? Teach. You stare at him. He doesn't flinch. So, you take the chalk. You write one word on the board. Build. That's it. You turn around. Freedom wasn't just something given, you say. It's something we build. Together, with hands, with words, with gardens, with names. The class is quiet, even Maybelle. Then Jesse raises his hand. What are we building? You smile. That's the part we get to figure out. That night, you dream again. This time, you're not in the Library of Stars. You're in the field, standing on a crate like the teacher once did. You're older, worn, but not tired. You speak, and your voice carries, not just through the crowd, but across time, across places, through porches and prisons and prayers. You wake up smiling. The candle beside your bed has burned halfway down, and the morning light coming through the window looks like a door just opened. Summer stretches thin, like taffy left too long in the sun. The heat slows everything. Even the birds forget how to sing some days. But life doesn't stop. It just leans into the stillness. The schoolhouse goes on, with open windows and the occasional paper fluttering off a desk like it's trying to escape. You teach more often now. The teacher sits in the back, arms crossed, eyes squinting, not judging, just remembering. He nods when you make a good point. He chuckles when you trip over a date. You're not perfect, but you show up, and that still counts for something. One day, Maybelle doesn't come to class. It's not like her. At first, you think maybe she's sick, or tired, or hiding. But by lunch, you walk to her house, past the creek, where the frogs sound like old fiddles. Her mother opens the door with her lips pressed tight. She left, she says. Your chest drops. Left? She said she was going east to find her brother. Said she couldn't stay put no more. You ask if she said goodbye. Her mother just shakes her head. You walk home slower than usual. The air feels heavier without her in it. That night, you sit by the tree and read one of her doodles from your notebook. It's a little sketch of a boot with wings. You tear the page out, fold it once, keep it. A few weeks pass. The teacher starts talking about towns up north where folks like you are opening shops, voting, publishing newspapers. He reads headlines that don't feel real. Colored congressman elected in Louisiana. Freedman's Bank established. First school for colored girls opens in Pennsylvania. Some of the kids cheer. Others blink like they don't understand. You feel something in your ribs shift. Like maybe the world just cracked open a little. That afternoon, you write a letter. Not to anyone in particular, just a letter for the road. Dear someone, I'm still here, still learning, still believing. Don't give up, even when it gets hard, especially then. Elijah. You fold it and tuck it into the crack in the wall. Maybe someone will find it, maybe not. But it's there now, and that feels like enough. Then, out of nowhere, a train comes to town, a real one, steam and all. It doesn't stop long, just enough to refuel. But it's loud, and it smells like iron and movement. You stand at the tracks, watching it exhale like a beast. Inside the windows, you see faces, white, black, tired, curious. One man nods at you. You nod back. You don't know his name. He doesn't know yours. But you both know the feeling of forward. Back at the schoolhouse, a new student joins. A girl with a quick tongue and quicker eyes. She's from the coast, where the air smells like salt and sailors. She sits beside you, doesn't speak for the first day. Then, during break, she leans over and whispers, "You, Elijah Clay?" You nod. She grins. "Maybelle told me you'd be here." Your heart stumbles. "She okay?" The girl nods. Bossy, loud, brave. You smile. That sounds like her. She hands you something. A tiny stone, smooth and dark. She said to give you this. Called it a pocket-sized reminder. You hold it like it's fragile. In truth, it's just a stone. But to you, it's a homecoming. That evening, the teacher tells a story. About a freedman who became a mayor. Another who opened the first black-owned printing press. A woman who taught herself to read at age 60 so she could sign her name on her own land deed. History doesn't move all at once, he says. It stutters, it repeats, but it remembers. Then he looks at you. You ready to help it remember? You don't speak, you just open your notebook and write. Some days, I carry the past like a weight. Some days, like a torch. But either way, I carry it. That night, you walk past the garden, now blooming like a secret well-kept. You pluck a collard leaf and chew it raw, bitter but strong. You sit by the old cedar, notebook in your lap, the pocket stone warm in your palm. You write for hours, not perfect sentences, just pieces, like stones for a road you're not done paving. You finish the night with one line. Juneteenth isn't about waiting anymore. It's about walking. You wake before the sun again, but this time it isn't to go to school. Today, you have something else in mind. You dress slowly, carefully, shirt tucked in, laces tight, stone from Maybell in your pocket like always. You don't tell anyone where you're going, not because it's a secret, because it's something you need to do alone. The town is quiet, the sky still in its soft blue-gray. You walk past Miss Annie's porch, past the old garden, past the train tracks that now whisper of cities you still can't pronounce. You're headed to the courthouse. It's not a grand building, more like a tired brick box with squeaky doors and windows that don't shut right. But to you, it might as well be the Capitol. Inside, a clerk looks up from his desk, surprised to see someone so early. You nod once. "I want to record my name," you say. The clerk hesitates. "You already on the rolls?" You shake your head. "I want to write it myself." He eyes you for a moment, then shrugs, flips through a thick book, and slides a form across the desk. You take the pencil. You press hard. Elijah Clay, clear, solid, yours. He stamps the paper. The thunk echoes like thunder in a chapel. "You can keep a copy," he says. You fold it slowly. Place it in your notebook, behind Maybell's sketch, behind your first written sentence, behind everything you've ever kept that mattered. Back outside, the wind picks up. You walk slower now, not because you're tired, because everything feels heavier, but not in a bad way, like wearing a coat that finally fits. At the schoolhouse, the teacher greets you with a look. No questions, just respect. "You ready?" he asks. You nod. He steps aside, lets you take his seat. You don't stand at the front. You sit with your classmates, notebook open, eyes soft. Today, you listen. Jessie reads a poem about broken fences. Sarah talks about how her father smiled for the first time in years. The girl from the coast, Naomi, you've learned, shows a map she drew of what the town could look like if we just moved a few fences. The future is in their mouths, and it sounds real. That night, you help Naomi pin her map to the schoolhouse wall. It's messy, beautiful. There are gardens where there were fields, a library, a row of houses all the same size. She points to a little square. That's a place where people can just sit and talk. You raise an eyebrow. Just talk? She nods. Talking's harder than it looks. You laugh. That's true. Later, you return to the stone wall. It's become a ritual. You don't go every day, just when the world feels too loud or too quiet. You sit with your back against it and open your notebook. You read what you wrote that morning. Your name, stamped and signed. You add a new line beneath it. Some people write history. Some whisper it. Some just live it loud enough that it never disappears. You close the notebook. You whisper into the dark, "You still with me, Maybell?" A breeze rustles the trees like an answer. That weekend, a traveling man visits town. He carries books, real ones, hardcovers with gold lettering. He sets up a stand in the square, dusts off each title like it's a child's forehead. You and Naomi flip through a book about Africa. The pictures are old, the words even older, but there's a line that stops you. To know where we're going, we must know where we began. You copy it into your notebook, underline it twice. The man offers you the book for free. "I think it belongs to you," he says. You take it like it's fire in your hands. Back at the schoolhouse, you start a library. Just 3 books on a shelf, someone nailed to the wall crooked. But each has a note inside the cover. Take it, read it, return it when you're ready. Within a week, the shelf is full of more books. Some borrowed, some donated, some handwritten. People leave little notes in the margins. Flowers between pages. A recipe for cornbread tucked into a book about ancient Egypt. The library becomes more than books. It becomes memory. On the last page of your notebook, you write, "Juneteenth gave us a key. We've spent every day since learning how to build a door. And beneath that, the door is open now. Walk through it with your name on your lips and your story in your hands." Autumn comes without permission. It sneaks into the air, slow and sly, like a secret, trying not to wake anyone. The heat eases off just enough for you to breathe without feeling like the sun's watching your every move. The leaves haven't turned yet, but you can feel them thinking about it. The schoolhouse smells like dust and chalk and change. You now teach half the week. The teacher sits in the back, same as always, his hands folded, his eyes half closed. Not because he's sleeping, but because he trusts you. You begin every lesson with one sentence. What we remember shapes what we become. Some students nod, some roll their eyes, but they all listen. One day, you get a letter, folded twice, sealed with wax, smudged writing on the front. You open it slowly, like it might explode. It's from Maybelle. She writes about trains that shake the ground and cities that never sleep. About people who talk too fast and streets that smell like hot oil and questions. She says she misses the silence, misses the porch, misses the wall. But mostly, she misses you. At the bottom, one line makes you stop breathing for just a second. Freedom looks different here. But I still carry the same stone. You close the letter. You don't cry. You don't smile either. You just sit with it, like you would sit with her. That week, Naomi finds a photograph in one of the library books. It's a blurry image, a crowd of people, all looking in the same direction. On the back, someone wrote, "Juneteenth, 1910, Galveston." You pass it around. Jesse says, "They look proud." Sarah says, "They look tired." You say, "They look like us." Naomi pins it to the wall above the map she drew. Underneath, she writes, "Then, still, always. Sunday brings a guest, not a preacher, not a teacher, a historian. He says he's collecting oral accounts of the freedman generation." You don't know how you feel about that, but you agree to speak with him. He sits you down with a strange box that clicks when he presses buttons. A recording device. He asks questions. Where were you born? When did you first hear about Juneteenth? What did it mean to you? You answer, slowly, carefully, choosing words like stones you plan to stand on. Then he asks, "Do you believe freedom was delayed?" You pause. Somewhere, a bird chirps. Finally, you say, "No, I believe it was stolen. But we took it back, quietly, daily, one page, one porch, one name at a time." He nods, turns off the machine. When he leaves, you feel lighter and heavier, both at once. That night, Naomi shows you something she's been working on. It's a play, not long, just a few scenes. About a boy who finds out he's free and doesn't know what to do with it. She asks you to read it. You do. When you finish, your hands shake a little. You wrote me, you say. She shakes her head. I wrote us. A few days later, you hang a sign outside the schoolhouse. Story night. Come share what made you free. At first, only a few people show. Miss Annie tells a story about singing a forbidden hymn under her breath while picking cotton. Jessie's grandmother describes walking 12 miles just to see her name written down for the first time. Then more come. Some bring songs. Some bring poems. One man just brings a rock and sets it on the table. This held up the corner of my shack for 30 years, he says. Now it holds this memory. You don't record these stories. You don't need to. They settle in your chest like stones in a well. Smooth. Deep. Always there when you need to draw from them. The teacher grows quieter. He teaches less, watches more. His hands tremble when he writes, so you help with the board. One afternoon, he places a worn book in your hands. Inside the cover, to the one who remembers what I forgot. You don't say anything, neither does he. He just nods once, then walks home. You don't see him the next day, or the day after. But on the third morning, you find a small envelope tucked into your desk. Inside, a key to the schoolhouse, no note. Just the weight of everything passed forward. That night, you sit by the stone wall. The flowers have started to wilt with the season, but one still blooms. A stubborn little stem with a crooked head. You whisper a name, not your own, someone else's. One of the ones who didn't make it, didn't get to see this, didn't get to teach or vote or carve freedom flowers in stone. You whisper again, and the wind answers. Not with words, but with presence. You pull out your notebook and write. Not every light shines loudly. Some just never go out. You start wearing the key around your neck. It hangs low, tucked under your shirt, cool against your chest in the mornings, warm by evening. Not everyone notices it, but those who do, well, they nod a little longer when they pass you now. Naomi calls you Professor Clay. You roll your eyes. She grins. The truth is, you're not the teacher. Not really. You're just someone who remembers. But sometimes, that's enough. Word spreads. More students arrive, some young, some older than you. One man walks 6 miles each way with a limp and a book under his arm. Another woman brings her son and says, and I never learned, but he will. The schoolhouse gets louder, better. Someone brings new benches. Someone else donates a set of slates. Naomi paints a sun on the wall with yellow chalk. You leave it there. And on the chalkboard, you write one word every morning. Begin. One afternoon, a storm rolls in, sudden and sure. The wind bangs shutters, and the rain drapes itself across the roof like a heavy coat. Inside, you read a story aloud, a folk tale about a hummingbird that carried water to a fire one drop at a time. When someone laughs and says, "That bird was dumb," you smile. "No," you say, "that bird was brave." Someone else asks, "Did the fire stop?" You shrug. Doesn't matter, the bird didn't stop. They get quiet after that. You hang a board near the front door with a question written in chalk. What did freedom feel like today? Every evening, you erase and start again. Some answers are funny. When I said no and didn't get slapped. When I got the last biscuit. When I remembered how to laugh. Some are heavy. When I forgave someone who didn't ask. When I buried my father and didn't call him master anymore. You don't correct any of them. You just keep the chalk nearby. A man shows up asking questions again. Not the historian. This one's from the city. Dressed like a banker. Smiles like he's selling something. He asks about land, about deeds, about contracts. You listen, nod politely. Then you say, "This school isn't made of contracts, it's made of memory." He doesn't get it. You don't explain. Naomi finishes her play. You perform it one Friday night in the field near the cedar grove. Someone strings lanterns from the trees. Jesse plays the drum. Miss Annie brings sweet tea in folding chairs. You read your lines without looking down once. When you finish, there's silence. The good kind. Like breath held in reverence. Then applause and laughter and pie. That night, Naomi hands you a folded sheet, a program from the play. On the back, in small, neat letters, she's written, "You're not a character. You're the reason there's a story at all." You keep that note, tucked in your notebook's back flap with the stone and Maybelle's letter and your first census slip. It's getting crowded in there, but nothing you want to let go of. The next day, you walk back to the wall. You haven't been in weeks, maybe months. The flowers are brittle now, the vines thin. You bring new seeds, dig carefully, plant them deeper this time. Then you sit, back against the stone, eyes half closed, listening. The world moves quieter here, like it's catching its breath. You pull out your notebook, write one line. Freedom doesn't forget. It waits. It watches. It returns. You stay until the sun kisses the edge of the earth. And when you rise, you leave behind one thing. The very first page you ever wrote, the day I chose my own name, folded once, tucked in a jar, buried beneath the roots, not to hide it, but to plant it. The next morning, a girl taps the chalkboard with her knuckle. "Teacher," she says, "what comes after freedom?" You don't answer right away. You look around, at the wall of stories, the dusty books, the sunlight slicing through the shutters. Then you say, "After freedom comes choosing, comes building, comes passing it on." The girl writes that down like it's scripture. Maybe it is. You dream of the train again. Not the one that passed through town months ago, but one bigger, longer, gleaming like it's made of brass and memory. You're not just watching it this time. You're on it, surrounded by people, all reading, humming, holding papers with names you don't recognize but somehow know. Each car has a different sound, a lullaby in one, a sermon in another, the clatter of a printing press in the next. At the end of the dream, you step off, not in your town, but somewhere new, a place where nobody asks if you belong, only how long you've been home. You wake with tears on your cheeks, not sad ones, the kind that feel like rain after dust. At the schoolhouse, Naomi is pacing. She has a letter. She's been offered a chance to teach. In a different town, bigger classrooms, more books, real pay. You can tell she's afraid to say yes. You smile. You should go. She hesitates. What if they don't listen to me the way they listen here? You hand her your notebook, not the whole thing, just the final page. She reads it, nods, hands it back. "I'll make them listen," she says. And you believe her. The next day, you hold your first class alone. Fully alone. No teacher in the back, no Naomi at your side. Just you and 22 eyes looking your way. You write 3 words on the board. Name, place, legacy. "What do they mean?" a boy asks. You smile. "That's what we're going to find out." Word spreads again. People start coming not just for reading or writing, but for stories, for songs, for questions. Miss Annie shares recipes from memory, but she calls them culinary oral history. Jesse builds a bench with his bare hands and carves words into it. This is where I first believed I was smart. You hang a line across the schoolhouse for students to pin their dreams on. Some draw pictures, some write poems. One girl pins a blank page and says, "Some mine's still growing." One evening, the new mayor stops by. He asks what you need. You say, "Space." For what? For stories, for roots, for things that grow slower than schedules allow. He doesn't understand. You give him Naomi's play to read. He says he'll think about it. That night, you plant another row of seeds by the wall. Not because it needs more flowers, because you do. You hear from Maybelle again. Another letter, this one shorter. "I stood in front of a courthouse and helped a woman say her name for the first time. She cried after. Not because it hurt, but because it finally fit. P.S. I'm coming back soon." You reread that last line 5 times. On Juneteenth morning, you wake up early and walk to the clearing behind the school. A crowd is already gathering. Someone made banners. Someone baked. Someone's tuning a banjo. There's no preacher this time. No politician. They ask you to speak. You step up to the crate. Not because you want to be seen, but because the story needs a mouth tonight, and yours is ready. You say, "We used to wait for freedom to arrive like a letter in the mail. Now, we deliver it every day, in how we listen, in how we name, in how we carry what others buried." The wind hushes. Then the crowd rises in applause. Not wild, not showy, just sure. You step down. Naomi is there. Jesse, Sarah. Even the old teacher, leaning on a cane, nodding like he always knew you'd end up here. And through the crowd, you spot her. Maybelle. She doesn't wave. She doesn't need to. She's holding the same stone. You reach into your pocket and show her yours. Still here. That night, after the food is gone and the candles flicker low, you sit beneath the cedar tree with Maybelle beside you. You tell her everything she missed. She listens, really listens. Like each word is a seed. Then she says, "You've become the wall." You blink. What do you mean? You hold the stories now, and things grow around you. You sit with that for a while, then say, "Only if I'm not the only one." She grins. You never were. It's nearly evening again, the golden hour. That time of day where everything softens, light, air, even memory. You're sitting on the schoolhouse porch, feet propped up on the railing, notebook balanced on your knee. It's not the same notebook from before. That one's full, stored away like a keepsake. This one's new, blank pages, fresh corners, waiting. Inside, the kids are finishing their reading. Jesse is leading today. Naomi would be proud. He stumbles on the longer words, but his voice is firm, and when he finishes, The room applauds, not because they have to, but because they want to. You smile. The porch creaks. You glance to your left. Maybelle. She hands you a cup of something cold. Sweet tea, strong enough to wake the ancestors. "I heard you finally gave a student homework," she says, sipping. You grin. "Just one question. Same every week." She laughs. "Let me guess. What did freedom feel like today?" You nod. "Still works." Later, as the sky turns lavender and the candles are lit, the town gathers around the old fire pit. Miss Annie brings out her famous blackberry cobbler. The kids pass it around like treasure. Someone starts singing a hymn. Someone else picks up a fiddle. The night curls around you all, like a shawl sewn from stories. You don't speak tonight. You don't need to. You've said enough, but you do listen. To the boy who tells a story about his grandmother, who once escaped through a swamp, just to sit in the back of a classroom for one day. To the girl who says she finally wrote her father a letter in her own handwriting. To the elder who remembers hearing the word Juneteenth as a child and thinking it sounded like a season. The fire crackles. The wall, far in the distance, stands tall, wrapped in vines and moonlight. Maybelle leans over, whispering, "Think we'll still be doing this in another 50 years?" You shrug. "I hope so. If not us, someone." She nudges you with her elbow. "Still got that stone?" You pat your pocket. Never left. As the fire dims and the stars assert themselves, you pull out the new notebook. You flip to the first page. You hesitate. Then, in your careful script, you write, "This story doesn't end here." Because stories like this never really end. They pause. They echo. They grow roots. And they wait for someone else to pick up the pen. You close the notebook. You close your eyes. And you let the night take you gently, slowly, like an old friend who's been waiting just for this moment. The fire is out now. The field is quiet. Even the cicadas have hushed. You're still sitting under the tree, but everything feels slower, softer, like the world has exhaled. Somewhere a screen door creaks. A dog sighs in its sleep, and the last candle on the porch flickers one final time before going dark. You press your back into the earth. The grass cradles you like it knows your name. There's no rush, no noise, just breath and breeze and the calm rhythm of a night that understands. You think about the wall and how it used to hold fear. Now it holds flowers and letters and seeds. You think about your name, how it once felt strange in your mouth, and now it fits like a home you built with your own hands. You think about the train and the girl who danced and the stone you still carry. And somewhere in all that thinking, you start to drift, not into nothing, but into rest, into peace, into the deep, warm knowing that your story has been seen, that your voice has mattered, that freedom isn't a sound, it's a silence that doesn't scare you anymore. So rest now. You've earned it. The light is still there, and it'll be waiting for you when you wake.